Mobile 89.1 FM.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting. Good afternoon, Cayman. You're tuning into Rethink Parenting, the Family Resource Center radio show on Bobo 89.1 FM. Welcome. You're joined by myself, Anne-Marie Diaz. I'm the program coordinator at the Family Resource Center, and I have my beautiful guest with me, Miss Kenzy Wright. She's a parenting practitioner at Family Resource Center, and when I say beautiful, beautiful on the inside and outside. And she's here with me today to talk about bullying, specifically bullying prevention. Now, welcome, Kenzy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much and for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. It's always great to have you and to have that time to chat with you a little bit. So let's give our parents a little background on what I often end up tasking you with a few times a year, right? Which is our bullying prevention presentation. And you've been going into both the primary and the secondary schools. Now, can you give just a few takeaways that students often walk away from this presentation with? What are some key things they walk away with?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that question. So we do have our Stood Up campaign, which is in every single October that we observe this, which is our anti-bullying campaign. However, we're mostly known for this in our pink shirts, the Family Resource Center. However, this is something that we do all year long. Right. So as you said, we have our anti-bullying prevention presentations where we go both into the primary and the secondary schools. And many people have the misunderstanding that bullying typically happens within those younger age groups. Right. However, I wanted to just even answer this question starting from a statistical standpoint, where we found with the Cayman Islands Student Drug Use Survey that actually majority of the bullying that is being witnessed is in grade 11.
Really?
Which is quite significant, because we would believe at this age, the oldest students may have the skills or the empathy in order to avoid engaging in such behaviors.
Right.
However, this is something that starts from a very, very young age, and it goes all the way up. And we know that it doesn't just stop at schools. It follows us to the workplace, to home, and our communities. So what we like to do is we go into the schools and we offer this presentation. What we try to ensure that we instill in them is, firstly, to be able to define what bullying is. Because everyone knows what bullying is
or they think they know.
Think, exactly.
Okay.
However, it's quite tricky to define it. So we break it down into 3 different areas. First, it involves a misuse of power in relationships. Mm-hmm. And students are often like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Right. It's where they are exerting a power over somebody else. So maybe that's someone with a lot of friends or someone who's a little bit bigger.
Right.
And it could also be social power as well as physical.
Okay.
It's ongoing and repeated. So we often ask the scenario. Say someone does something intentionally and they do it once. Is that bullying? And all the hands typically raise up and they say yes. And we're saying, actually, because it only happened once and it was a single incident, it's not considered to be bullying. However, single incidences should be taken very seriously.
Right. And that could be where you're preventing bullying from starting, right?
Exactly, from a preventative measure.
Right.
And then it also includes behaviors that can cause some form of harm.
Right.
Right. And we like to discuss, well, what can happen from bullying?
Right.
Because, yes, it's kind of like, don't bully. Within the schools, it's almost like buzzword. And I know
but what
that
are you
they
doing
have,
instead of that, right?
Exactly. They have the anti-bullying policies. However, how are we making sure that the children own these policies, make them their own, and are able to implement them in their daily lives within schools and within the community?
Make it action-based. Yeah.
Exactly. So they know what bullying is, they know what it looks like, but once within our first 10 minutes of the presentation, they're able to define it. And we keep reiterating these 3 major factors that are bullying. We also talk about the people that are involved in bullying.
Right.
Because we often say, well, who's involved in bullying? and it's the bully and the victim. However, there's many different people that are involved with bullying, and we can have, for example, we have the bystanders, and we say, well, what is a bystander? Well, there's different forms of bystanders, right? There's someone who laughs along, who reinforces the behavior.
Right.
And sometimes they may not like it and they may not agree with it, but everyone's laughing, so, I'm going to join in too. But being able to say, hey, actually, that's making you part of the problem.
Right.
We also have the bystander who doesn't like to get involved and they like to stay quiet. But we also say, when you're staying quiet and you're not standing up for other people, you're teaching them or you're telling them that you're okay with that behavior.
Right. You're not part of the solution. You're actually adding to what the issue is, right?
And we really try build in that accountability and that they themselves can play a role in reducing bullying. Because bullying may always happen. However, it's important that children and adults, they take it onto themselves who are saying, I'm going to be a bully-free zone around me.
Right.
And we're going to talk about a little bit later, I think, how we can encourage children to do so.
Okay.
And we also have those who are the assistant. They may hold down the person, or they may
be directly involved.
Yeah, be directly involved, block exits and so forth. So being able to say, there's the bully, there's a victim, there's the upstander, the bystander, I'll get to that soon. There's the authority, whether it be the school authority or the community authority, which may be the police. And then there's also going to be an upstander. The upstander, what's an upstander? And what we want to do is, the ultimate goal of these presentations, Ms. Emery, is to encourage children to be able to stand up to bullying in a safe, practical, and enforceable way so that they can, make a change and be an upstander so they stand up to bullying. So that's kind of where our Stood Up campaign stems from.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So students are walking away knowing what bullying is, the different types of bullying, who's involved, and also encouraging them to take on this role and empower them to potentially reduce bullying around them, right?
That's we really want to, embrace reporting and what it looks like, but also what can you do through discouraging, as well as, empowering their peers by empowering themselves, essentially.
Right. And so, like you said, we usually focus on bullying during October, but February is also recognized in many parts of the world as a national bullying prevention month as well. So we thought, let's talk about that today. Can you go back to the statistic and where you got that from, just to help parents in case they want to Google that statistic from the National Drug Council? Can you just repeat what that was?
So the one that I had noted is that the highest proportions of being bullied within the school are students in grade 11. And actually 53.6% of students within this age group have been bullied within the past year or within the past 30 days.
And that's what students locally are reporting.
Yes.
And so we could find this as a parent. I could even Google National Drug Council and the 2022 results from the Cayman Islands Student Drug Use Survey.
Yes.
So if you're a researcher like us and you'd like to seek out that information, go ahead and Google National Drug Council, the Student Drug Use Survey 2022 results. So this is actually quite fresh in terms of recent statistics.
And it also noted that close to half of all students within our schools, both public and private, reported being bullied at a high rate of 47.7%. So almost half of our students are being bullied to some extent. And there's many different types of bullying as well. So that's another thing that we really try to teach them. What are the different types of bullying? Because sometimes they would think, name calling. Oh, well, my friend laughs at that.
Right.
Well, how did you think they feel?
Right.
And asking them. And also maybe social bullying. Excluding someone is a form of bullying that is often overlooked.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because you're right. Obviously, if almost half, and that could be underreported too, right? And students sometimes are a bit nervous to even say what's happening. But that right there is quite alarming, right? So for parents, let's discuss a little bit in what I as a parent can support my child in learning and skill building to potentially avoid becoming the bully, becoming a victim of the scenario. What are some main skills you think are important that maybe I'm learning as a student at school, sure, but the parent is the primary
caregiver, the primary teacher, right? And their main influence in their life. What can I support my child in learning? What are some key skills?
Well, when we talk about standing up for yourself and standing up for others, this all comes down to communication.
Right.
As parents, you really need to model what assertive and clear communication looks like.
Right.
And that may be, in your daily conversations with them, or telling them about something that may have happened at work and how you responded, and using, taking accountability for your own feelings, using I feel statements. So I feel like this, and what I would like is this.
Right.
So teaching them how they can speak to other people without basically waving their fingers, but being able to take, control of their feelings, as well as stand up for your own rights while not violating the rights of others. So we really want to teach what assertive communication is. We really want to listen to what our children have to say. That's most important. We want to make sure that we have a strong relationship with our child, that if they are experiencing a problem, that they can come to you, and you can almost be their soundboard, and you can discuss it. So we don't want to react. We don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction. We want to listen to them and encourage them to problem solve. And this is building skills for the future. So if your child's being bullied, showing empathy. Wow, that must be really hard. How do you think that we can, come to solve this together?
Right.
Or what can I do for you to help you? Rather than, a reaction where I'm going to go down to school and so forth. We really want to use that as a teaching opportunity so that they can see that they can be empowered to solve their own problems. So we really want to
model the assertive communication.
Exactly.
Right.
We want to take the child's side as well. We want to let them know that we're there for them. And, when your child comes to you and they're being bullied, it can really stir up some uncomfortable and unpleasant emotions in parents.
Right.
They love their children. They want the best for their children, and they send them to school, and they hoping it would be a safe environment for their child to come home and say, hey, Mom, someone said this to me or did this to me. And it can really stir up those overpowering emotions.
Right.
So maybe the parents need some support.
Yes.
Maybe they need to reach out to a family member or a friend, or even the Family Resource Center, and see how they can best support their child. But yeah, we really want to coach your child on how to react as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so if this happens again, what can you do that will, keep your problem small, make sure you're safe, but also, generate a resolution to the problem.
And even practicing with them, like it can be fun, like role play. Like, I'm going to be the other person, and let's talk about how we can handle this.
Exactly.
That can be helpful, right? But you're right. I mean, it can be hard as a parent. I mean, I can imagine your child coming home saying they're bullying, they're being bullied, or whatever the case may be. You're going to have a strong emotional reaction, right? But it's about practicing that emotional regulation, calming ourselves down first, right? Because a lot of times we want to be mama bears and papa bears and run to the rescue, and naturally so. So I think it's also about even just in being prepared that our child may one day come to us about an issue, but responding to those small moments well too, because if we're flying off the handle at a potential small issue, me as a child, I'm thinking, not coming to mommy or daddy about this, and so that's where they start to hide things too. So it's about thinking about the small stuff. How are you responding to the small stuff too? And practicing, like you said, the assertive communication, that empathy. We have to show empathy to our child so that they can then practice it too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a lot of modeling on the parents' part. It's not easy, is it, Miss Kenzy?
Not easy, and it can also feel quite scary because this is something you haven't dealt with before. So what I do encourage parents to do is to reach out to the teacher, to reach out to the school administration, and say, how can I make sure that how I'm coaching my child to respond aligns with the values and the anti-bullying policy that you have, and
That's
getting
a
on
great
board
point.
And making it almost a team effort.
Right, we're partners. You, me, and the child, right? We're all together in this. So that's great. So let's say, what when you talk about assertive communication, right, it's very easy to jump into the other types of communication, though, right? So can you share with our parents the distinction between the different types? Like, what is assertive communication, and what are the other types of communication? What might they look like?
Sorry. So, as noted, assertive communication, you stand up for your own rights. Mm-hmm. You're being bullied and you're standing up for yourself and you're saying, hey, I don't like that. But you're also maintaining the right of the bully. The bully may have done something very hurtful. They are violating your rights. But you want to be the bigger person. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you walk away and you leave it, that's telling the bully it's okay. Right. However, that's not the message we want to get across. We really want to be assertive and taking control of our feelings. So it kind of says, hey, we're both important. I think we're equal. We both matter. Mm-hmm. But I don't like the way that you're treating me right now. And you're using firm voice. Right. But we're not going to go into the next form of communication that we'll be talking about in a minute. Right. Where we're speaking to them directly, but we're also relaxed in posture. So body language plays such a huge part in our communication. Absolutely. When we talk about communication, people often think just verbal, but you know, it's body language. It's so your shoulders are back. Mm-hmm. You're looking proud, right? Exactly. Standing tall. And then there's also a form of problem-solving styles when we speak about assertive communication, and they negotiate. Right. You know, they approach things with curiosity rather than almost saying, like, why are you doing this? Blaming or shaming. Like that. Right. Exactly. Right. And they don't let negative feelings build up, which can be very difficult when someone feels like their rights are being violated as they're being bullied. But just, as we said, parents can really coach and be such a powerful influence in teaching our children how they can respond and how they can own their voice. Right. Especially as they get older, they really need to learn how to stand strong in who they are. Right. And their voice is a very powerful thing. Embracing that and encouraging that. So it's encouraging that confidence from our children too, right? And I think sometimes as parents we get so caught up in the everyday. We're checking off lists, making sure people have their uniforms on and their lunch kits and all of those little things. But it's important also to hear from our children regularly and asking those open-ended questions like, hey, do you still love math? How's that going? How did that go today? And just having our children share their voice on a regular basis, that's going to boost their confidence. And they're going to be more likely to practice assertive communication outside of the home too, right? So it's important to make sure that we're building that or maintaining that ongoing relationship with our child and hearing them speak. I totally agree. And something that I love to say when I'm working with parents is that we often say the outside world is a real world. That's not the case. The home is a real world. The home is where you learn all the skills, problem solving, right? How to be assertive, how to stand up for yourself. You learn empathy, you learn kindness, you learn what love should feel like, right? If hopefully within that certain setting. So yes, most definitely, the home is where things are modeled, and parents really have such a strong influence. And sometimes they may feel, you know, hopeless. I don't know what to do. My child is being bullied. Well, this is an opportunity for you to upskill them. Another form of communication that we were talking about is we have our aggressive communication. Right. Aggressive communication is you stand up for your own rights, but you violate the rights of others. Right. And when I was learning about this back when I was a student, it says that it's win-lose. So you win and they lose. However, what I've learned with time is that actually both people lose. Yeah. You know, you kind of give the message to the bully, your feelings are not important, you don't matter, I think I'm better than you and I'm more important than you, and you're using a loud voice, you're using you statements, you're a bully, you're this, you're that, we're labeling, and that may make their problems bigger and may aggravate the bully even more. So when they go into a situation where they're hoping to resolve a conflict by themselves with their peers, before escalating the matter, if it continues, it can maybe make things worse. You know, they may be tense, fingers pointed and more rigid, and problem solving kind of goes out the window then. It may lead to threatening language. It may lead to the person being bullied actually turning into the bully. Right. And it's
Because they're noticing that power dynamic, right? And thinking, oh, I need to be in this position actually. And then they can end up taking that place, right?
And it makes the problem bigger, essentially.
Right.
The last form of communication method that I wanted to mention is passive. So this is basically if your child is being bullied and they may laugh it off.
Right.
Or they may not respond, allowing it to continue. This would be a passive form of response, which is very common for those who don't like conflict.
Right.
Which our youngsters typically don't. But this kind of gives a bully that you're putting their rights before
ahead
your
of
own.
yours.
And you minimize the importance of your own needs and your own wants and your own self-worth, which can be very damaging, right? And it kind of tells a bully, I think I'm inferior. And it even strengthens that power dynamic that we talked about, which is a part of bullying, right? So it may include for problem solving, avoiding, ignoring, postponing, walking away. And sometimes it's good to walk away, but always return to the situation. So if your child says to you, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I've been bullied, and they're giving you the story, and you say, well, what did you do? And they said, oh, I walked away. Say, well, I'm very proud of you for being able to walk away. However, it's important that you go back and address
it in some way,
what happened.
Right.
Because if not, that's telling the bully, hey, I'm okay with this behavior. I will be your victim. You can bully me.
Right. So walking away, but having a plan in mind to handle it later. So what about parents that are listening and they maybe want to start this conversation up at home? How could they maybe even use like TV shows and games and books their children are already maybe reading? Can they start to use these as a way to start to talk about relationships and communication styles? What would you recommend?
I think what you mentioned is just such a powerful medium of learning. So say it's Saturday night, they've picked the movie and something comes up in the movie where someone's being bullied. You know, I'm gonna pause it really quickly here. Maybe you'll get a snack or something and you'll say, hey, what did you think about that? How did they respond? How would have you respond? If the person's being bullied, how do you think that made them feel?
Right.
And doing such little conversations, often not like drawing it out too much, making it just a quick, brief conversation, jumping back into the movie again, can be very
practical learning.
Practical learning opportunity that can really build up empathy skills. Because many people don't realize, but empathy is actually a skill, and it's learned from home and the conversations that parents are having with their children. So really just building up that empathy by asking them to put themselves on that person's shoes. Oh, I saw that person was being bullied in the movie. How do you think they felt? Books are fantastic, bedtime story. And
they teach a lot of social stories too.
Yeah, and just having that open discussion. Well, how do you think they felt? Not probing, just allowing them to answer naturally and
start to think critically, right?
Yeah, maybe using it as a coaching opportunity or saying, well, actually, if that was me, I would feel sad or disappointed, and being able to label your own feelings, because especially when we're talking about younger children, they experience these big emotions. However, they may not know how to label them, especially not know how to respond to them.
Very true.
So we want to make sure that our children are able to label emotions and being able to identify when someone is violating their rights from bullying.
And a quick tip for parents too, labeling emotions are so powerful. It's actually been studied to reduce the escalation of or the feeling of that emotion once we label it, and even to have someone else label. So even when you say, oh, it looks like you're sad, it looks like you're frustrated, that right there can de-escalate the actual, the intensity of the feeling for your child. So that really helps with supporting managing behaviors too, right? Because if our child is frustrated, they're acting out of frustration, you simply saying, it looks like you're frustrated right now, can actually de-escalate the intensity for them. Yeah. So it's a really powerful tool, parents, something that you can use regularly. And it helps our children, of course, with their self-awareness and self-expression, as you're saying, right?
And for their self-regulation. Even saying, are you frustrated? And asking them so they can say, no, I'm angry. Give them the opportunity to
that ownership.
correct you and take ownership of their own feelings and emotions, which in turn will lead to them taking ownership of their own behaviors.
Yeah, and even asking, what do you think will make you feel a little better right now? How can we problem solve? And so encouraging those critical thinking skills. And I love, like, going back to the media bit, I love to even, my little boy's only 5, but, he loves, like, people like Spider-Man and Sonic and so forth. And even saying, well, how do you think, was that okay how Sonic handled that just there? And I love to see his little mind start to critically think and think, but I love him, but no, that wasn't okay. And it's great because he can even disagree with his heroes and see them as actually these three-dimensional kind of personalities, and that not everyone's just purely great, So it looks like we need to take a quick break.
Okay.
If you'd like to give us a call or WhatsApp us on 745-2626, we're happy to answer any parenting-related question, especially bullying, as that's our topic for today. 745-2626. You're on Rethink Parenting on Bobo 89.1 FM. We'll see you soon.
The Family Resource Center invite you to join us on Bobo 89.1 FM for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting, where we share practical and positive parenting information to support happy, healthy family life. We'll share how to handle day-to-day issues. We'll address common challenges with parenting, such as how to manage misbehavior, supporting our teens through growing up, managing co-parenting dynamics, and how to take care of ourselves and manage our own stressors. Family Resource Center, committed to building people, building families. Tune in on Bobo 89.1 FM. Find us at frc.gov.ky or call us on 949-0006. Submit your questions and concerns regarding parenting to us, and we'll share them on air. Join us for our weekly show called Rethink Parenting.
Welcome back, parents, to Rethink Parenting, the Family Resource Center radio show on Bobo 89.1 FM. You are joined by myself, Anne-Marie Diaz, the program coordinator at the Family Resource Center. And I have with me Ms. Kenzy Wright, parenting practitioner at the Family Resource Center. And we're focused on bullying prevention today. And we've been talking about several things. You've given so much information, Kenzy. Thank you so much. And we've been talking a lot about the presentations that we're providing in schools, specifically our bullying prevention presentations. Some of the skills that children are potentially walking away with or are enforced with as they walk away from the presentations. And some skills that we as parents can really focus on in the home to ensure that we're setting our children up for success when they go into the community and into the schools where they may be faced with bullying scenarios, right? And so we've talked about quite a lot. I'd like us to, because often we talk about this conversation from the standpoint of how do you parent a child who is being bullied, and we can often neglect that the bully in this scenario or the person exhibiting bullying behaviors, they often need even more support, right? And so let's talk about it from that standpoint. What could a parent do? I mean, from initially, right, finding out, maybe I've gotten a call from the teacher. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's the way we're finding out our child has been engaging in bullying. Even just from that standpoint, how should I start to think about this and support my child through this? What are some recommendations you have?
That's a great question. Really important to turn our children's mistakes into teachable moments.
Nice, yeah.
So rather than approaching the situation, you received a call from the school and your child is actually being the bully rather than jumping to punitive messages as well as a reaction, having that knee-jerk reaction that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Right.
We want to approach it with curiosity.
Yeah.
What is going on with my child? Typically, children who bully, they lack empathy. As we said, empathy is a skill. So as a parent, how can I help build empathy within my child? For example, asking them to put themselves in the shoes of the victim.
Right.
Right. We can also engage in a form of restitution. Restitution is a positive parenting technique, and it may look like writing an apology letter to the person that they have bullied, and also showing that they have changed not through their words, but through their behaviors.
But empathy, I guess if I forced my child to just write the apology letter because it looks good, the child isn't necessarily learning anything there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we support our child in coming from a place of authenticity and truly developing this empathy skill? What are some other things?
I think it's really important that you seek to understand why this behavior may be occurring. In psychology, we have the iceberg model, which is basically above the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is the behaviors that we see. So whether it's the bullying, the physical bullying, the social bullying, the verbal bullying, whatever kind of bullying that they're engaging in, but what's underneath?
Right.
Are they angry? Why are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they having a difficult time making friends themselves, and they think that this is the only way that they can, stand out from the crowd?
Yeah. It could be coming from a place of hurt, too.
Yeah.
I think parents, we don't even realize how much what's going on in the home can impact our child. We think, well, this is just between me and, the other parent, or me and their grandmother. Like, this has nothing to do with the child, and they need to maybe mind their own business. But actually, whatever they're hearing, whatever they're seeing, it's definitely impacting our child. They might not say anything. They might not even act out in the home, but they're going to be internalizing everything that they're seeing and observing, right? And so it's being mindful of what's going on right now in our family that could be potentially be harming them or hurting them or causing them to feel hurt.
Yeah.
And how can I, make family life a bit more easier for them? Maybe I need to be more mindful in the conversations I'm having around them, because life happens, right? Where we're often dealing with family conflict or whatever the issue might be, or we're moving a house, and that comes with all the frustrations and all of that too. So sometimes it's just about the parent being mindful and how much can cross over for the child, and they take that into the school environment, right?
Most definitely. Children learn from what is modeled to them.
Right.
So what children see, children do.
Right.
So just to expand on that point a little bit more, it's important to practice the perspective taking. So I heard that this incident happened. What was going on? Okay, and what was going on for the other person? How do you think it made them feel? And also focus on the root cause of that behavior. Maybe it is something going on with home, or maybe it's something that you're not too sure about. So again, we talked about labeling feelings and understanding the underlying need that may be going on. However, it's also important that we approach it with curiosity as well as empathy. However, that we develop a zero-tolerance culture and we set those consequences.
Right,
so
those boundaries.
Let them know what the expectation is.
Right.
So before they go to school, have that conversation in the car.
Right.
This is, in our family, we value being kind to each other. We value using kind words. Ask them why they think that's important. And ask them, well, how are you going to model this value at school?
Right.
And we really want to use that positive language, but we're going to say, well, if I hear that you are engaging in bullying, this will be the consequence. So before they engage in the behavior, they already know, well, if I bully, this may happen. And that may be a good way to, control the bullying behavior, or so to speak. However, it will be a skill that's built in with time. So they stop bullying because they want to avoid trouble.
Right.
But once we've gotten to that part, maybe they stop bullying because they're learning that it's not a behavior that keeps their problems small, but also it hurts others. We really want to build that empathy within them, but that's just not built overnight.
Right.
So if your child is bullying, you're going to set the stage. We do not bully in this home. In this home, this looks like using kind words. Even when we're in school and we're in the community, we treat each other nicely. We treat each other as we would like to be treated.
Right.
So how can we do this?
Right.
And if we don't, this is what's going to be the consequence. However, I want you to come to me and talk to me about it, because we can problem solve together.
And so practicing a little bit of grace on yourself and patience with acknowledging this is going to take time, right? It's about learning new behaviors, practicing new behaviors. And so say my child, they're agreeing with me, they've apologized, they've done all the things and written apology letters and done whatever it might be that the teachers or the schools have set for them too. how can I then continue to reinforce and support my child in continuing on this journey and seeing the value in practicing these positive behaviors?
That's a great question, because sometimes when the behaviors stop, we start focusing on another behavior.
Right.
But this really speaks to the importance of praise, the power of praise. We really want to encourage the child's efforts in rectifying their behavior before.
Right.
You're really showing them that you have changed, that you're no longer a bully. I'm so proud of you.
Right.
How was your day today? And they say, well, this happened. And how did you respond? Wow, I'm so proud of you. Before you may have done this, but I can see such growth in you. And really praising the behaviors.
And validating for your child how hard it must be, right? Because it's not easy to change. It's not easy to start to do different things with your friends or teachers or whoever it is, right? And so I think validating the challenges there and like you said, admiring and expressing that praise and that and encouraging them to keep going, right? Absolutely.
And progress isn't linear. It's going to have its ups and downs. So really focusing on that strong relationship with your child. So if, they do slip up, they can say, hey, Mom, Dad, this is what happened. And you're using that again as a teachable moment. Okay, well, let's role play. Say that I'm this person and you are yourself.
Right.
So the victim and the bully, how could you have responded differently?
Right.
Who do you have at school? Who's your trusted adult at school? That if you're having a really, really hard time managing these big emotions and you feel to take it out on someone and engage in that misuse and power, who can you turn to?
That's great to identify, right? Who can they turn to?
And you can have your coach at home, mom and dad, but you can also have your coach at school and someone that you can turn to and say, hey, I'm having a really difficult time and I feel like taking it out on so-and-so, and they can step in and be that helping hand.
Yeah, these are great points, and I hope parents are taking bits and pieces, lots of gold nuggets that we're sharing with them today. Now, let's talk a little bit more about this empathy building, because like you said, it is a practice. It's not something we're born with. I think we take it for granted when we are being empathetic, and it's certainly easier for a parent to show empathy to another parent or another adult that has that similar sort of frame of mind. It is harder to show empathy to children because we no longer kind of identify with them and their problems. So how could a parent start to teach and support their children in learning empathy? What are some ways that they can go about this?
We're going to sound like
a broken record.
A broken record, but in order to teach our children empathy, we need to show empathy for ourselves.
For ourselves.
For ourselves.
Okay.
And we need to show empathy within the home. And it may even be verbalizing this, saying, maybe you make a mistake in the kitchen, if they're young, right? Oh, this is so hard. I can't believe I did this. Oh, everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. I can do this. I can always try again. And just verbalizing that positive self-talk and empathy. So say that you have siblings. They have siblings, the children. And a child, one of the siblings makes a mistake. You modeling that empathy. And you can also have that conversation with the younger or the older sibling saying, well, how do you think Mommy handled that? How do you think he felt when I responded in this way?
Right.
And again, it's social skills can really be used through role play. And role play can feel very awkward. It can feel very uncomfortable. It can feel silly.
We can even use puppets, like their little toys. We could use that. It doesn't have to be us,
exactly.
Right?
It could be even just a show that really speaks to the challenge that's going on. Just to try teach them the skills and instill the value in them, and even in our home we're empathetic to each other. We teach them the word. What does that mean? Well, and you show the behaviors that this involves, and then you model that to them. So modeling is very powerful, having that open, honest communication, teaching conflict resolution skills as well, because sometimes children and teenagers, they want things their way, and they have a difficult time accepting it any other way. However, you can teach conflict resolution skills so that both people feel okay. We want to come up with plans where everyone feels okay at the end of the day, and it's not someone violating another person's feeling for them to another person to win. but so that it's a win-win situation. So there's many different tools. I'm a huge fan of role play, so that's why I've spoken about it quite a lot, but finding what works for your family.
Right.
And trying things and erring things. Oh, that felt funny. Let's try something else. Or continuing and trying and see if it works. And just having those important conversations. And again, that open, honest communication and listening is really, really important to listen, because we need to challenge our children sometimes. When we're listening to them, we're taking everything in, but we're also saying, hey, I think you're being a little bit hard on yourself. Okay. And again, perspective taking, very, very influential skill and activity that you can engage in with your children.
Okay. And I think this can be quite hard for parents, and I myself am certainly in that pool, because sometimes we're just such expert problem solvers. We just go, oh, what's the issue? Oh, here, do this, right? And so we hear maybe our children in the background, their brother and sister, they're fighting over a toy. And we're immediately like, hey, you do this. Give that toy, whatever. And yeah, that might solve the situation and prevent tears or whatever the case may be. But it's really helpful to start to encourage our children to problem solve, right? And so in those moments, whether it's the siblings, cousins, their playmates are over, whatever, starting to encourage them. And I find it's easier for my child when I get close to them and I'm sitting on their level and saying, hey, what else could you do here? And asking questions. You know, we sometimes undermine our child. We think, oh, they're too young, they don't understand, they don't know what to do. I need to tell them. But actually ask them, what do you think you should do right here? Oh, it looks like she really wants that toy, but you really want the toy too. What else could we do? And you might be surprised that your child might go pick another toy and figure out some sharing sort of opportunity there, right? Now, so coaching isn't as hard as we sometimes think. You know, sometimes it's just literally sitting next to our child, showing that empathy, right? Expressing that calm body language next to our child and saying, how do you think you can handle this? You're both really upset right now. Why don't we pause for a minute? I'll hold on. I'll keep your toy safe. And when you guys are ready to share, we'll come back together. So we can even provide solutions too. But making it almost a collaborative effort really helps in the long term. It feels like a lot of work in the moment. And you might think, oh, I don't have time for this. You know, it's too much effort. But in the long run, your child are learning these critical skills like we were talking about today, the problem solving, the empathy, turn-taking in and of itself. Yeah. Sometimes it's a huge skill that takes a long time for our children to develop. So all of these things can be really helpful. And just being patient with ourselves as parents, being patient with our children, showing each of us grace, right? And saying, oh, let's think of another way to handle this. It looks like this isn't working. Right. And what's that definition of insanity if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, right?
Expecting the same results.
Right. And so if you're noticing, parents, that you're having the same kind of issues come up a lot in the home, reach out to us at the Family Resource Center. Give us a call on 949-0006 or email us at frc@gov.ky. And we recently launched our phone consultation, so that's an easy start, right? You have one of us providing individualized professional recommendations to you based on your unique needs. It's a great starting point, especially if you don't feel like you have loads of time on your hands. You can't necessarily meet appointments with us. It's a great starting point, and you might just in those 30 minutes have all the answers you need going forward, you know? So going back to our bullying prevention presentations, in October, we had our colleague, Miss Miles Ruby. She coordinated a very successful upstander training in October, and we went to several schools, both public and private, to train mostly the student leaders, so mostly those that are either prefects or some other sort of student leader, showing those leadership skills. And they were trained to understand what bullying is, how to be an upstander, and were given pins even to identify themselves amongst the student body. as upstanders. So I knew as a student, oh, this is my upstander. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to go to her to get some advice, get some support right now. And so we'd love for you to share a little bit with us, specifically about what you really enjoyed from doing those trainings. What did you enjoy about it?
So we went to many different schools. We went to primary schools, we went to secondary schools, we went to public schools, we went to private schools. And within all of these schools, bullying was a challenge.
Right.
So what we really wanted to generate was a school-based initiative that really got the students involved. Because often the schools will have an anti-bullying policy, and sometimes it's just a piece of paper.
Right.
We want to add meaning. We want them to own their own,
take
the
pride in
policy,
it. Right.
And know that they can make a difference. Many times, students will just believe that, bullying is going on in the school and there's nothing I can do about it. And we said, oh no, that's not the case. Each and every person has a role to play in creating a safe school environment that is free from bullying.
Right.
So how can they do this? And we modeled communication. We spoke about the importance of assertive communication. We asked them to come up and model that assertive communication. We spoke about the different types of bullying, how they can respond in a safe and effective manner. We talked about conflict management and problem resolution skills. And then also, we've tried to solve it peer from peer now, and there's no end in sight as of yet. How can we escalate this to a school authority? So we really wanted them to be able to own their own voices and take accountability for their own actions and behaviors by engaging in anti-bullying measures. And there was such a huge buy-in. The kids really, really were proud when they got their pins, and to earn the pin, they had to, a lot of people did the training. Children did the training, and at the end of the training, once they had successfully passed the training and had gone through each of the different components, we said, if you feel like you will stand up against bullying, like you're ready to take this on, like you really believe in this being a bully-free zone, and you're willing to go the extra mile for your peers, please stand up. Right. And not all did, but many did. And that just shows that we were pinning children and teenagers who were willing to, take action against bullying. And then we did a pledge. And when I listened to the pledge, I got goosebumps because it was just these sweet little voices doing the pledges, the year 11s doing the pledges, and they all had their...
powerful.
Some of them would put their hand over their heart.
Yes, I remember
and
that.
And they would, pledge to really ensure that their peers feel safe and happy. And we also problem solve too, say, you weren't there when the bullying happened, but what could you do? Great ideas. I could go sit next to them. I could ask someone I typically don't talk to have lunch with me. Right. And it really generated, again, those empathy skills.
And problem-solving skills.
And problem-solving. And they seemed very, positive and hopeful. And it was just great to go into the different schools and hear their own perspectives on bullying. And often they would say, well, miss, it's a part of life. But we're saying, no, you can take action against bullying. And really, I felt like the training almost empowered them.
Yes.
And I think for me, that was the highlight of the training, is that we were able to empower the students so that they could empower their peers, and it's just leading to a cycle. So they're supporting a younger student or an older student, and then they're all coming together and supporting one another. So with this training, I feel it really focused on empowerment, empowering students to become upstanders, and then they're going into their schools and encouraging and empowering others.
Right. So I think we've talked about so much today, Miss Kenzy, and we're coming near to the end. What are some key messages you'd like those that are listening today to walk away with? What are some key takeaways that parents could maybe help to reinforce, maybe at home? Or what about the schools? Is it important for them to reach out to the schools and find out? We've been talking about bullying policies. I wonder how many parents know if whether or not their school has one, and what are the details to that. That might be really helpful for parents to know, right?
One thing I love to say to parents that I'm working with is you are the expert in your child.
Absolutely.
You know your child better than anyone knows your child, and therefore you are the strongest influence in their lives. So again, be mindful of the behaviors that you are engaging in and that your child is observing.
Right.
They may be off on the side playing a game on their video game, playing
but
Legos.
they're soaking everything up.
Soaking everything in like a sponge, so be very mindful. Building a strong relationship with your child is so important.
Yeah.
And it speaks to bullying. It speaks to so many different aspects of their growth, of their mental health, the kind of relationships that they'll have in the future, whether they be with friends, intimate relationships with family members. Having a strong relationship with your child is so important.
Yeah.
And in order to build that relationship, it doesn't have to be these big trips.
No, absolutely
it doesn't
not.
have to
Or
be going
expensive.
to Camana Bay.
Yeah.
It's just having many moments throughout the day, whether they're just 30 seconds or 10 seconds, where you are open and you're present and you are able to fully engage with your child and give them your undivided attention.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be these long periods of times, but just little moments
or waiting
throughout the day.
to the weekend. I think a lot of parents think, oh, well, Saturday or Sunday, that's the family day. But actually, it's just driving in the car, driving them to school or having dinner together. What are you chatting about?
Right.
Just having those, like you said, the open-ended questions, having that open communication.
Yeah.
And just being, even just simple things like being affectionate with our child.
Exactly.
Sometimes we don't even recognize the value of hugging and kissing and expressing how proud we are of them. Simple little moments, not even a few seconds long, can be so meaningful for our child.
Exactly. We want to set the stage and build that relationship so our child knows that they can come to us, especially if we have younger children doing this from young, when they get into teenager years, when they do make mistakes, they're comfortable to come to you rather than seeking advice from their peers, which may make their problems bigger.
Right.
However, if your child is a teenager and you're listening right now, it's not too late to really build that relationship. It's never too late. And again, speaking on that affection, maybe brainstorm some ways while you're driving in the car and you're listening to us. What are ways that you enjoy receiving affection and your child enjoys receiving affection? So you can both be comfortable. Maybe it's a little cuddle. Maybe it's holding hands. Maybe it's a kiss. Maybe it's a high five.
Right.
Finding what works well for your family.
Right.
That open and honest communication that'll come from that positive relationship. And again, as you said, ways that we can encourage that communication is instead of saying, "How was your day?"
Right.
And they good.
It's always fine, mommy.
Yeah, fine, good.
Yeah.
You asking those open-ended questions. What was the best part of your day? And sounding really excited and enthusiastic and like you really care, and just giving them that moment to share with you. Okay, well, what part of the day was a little bit hard for you? And that may be a good opportunity for them to actually say, hey, you know what? Bullying is going on in school, or I saw someone being bullied, or I was bullied, or I engaged in bullying behavior. And then what was the most random part of your day? Making it fun and just really, again, this is just things that will build that relationship that you have with your child.
Yeah.
And most importantly is don't fight your children's battles.
Yeah.
So many times if we find out our child is being bullied, we want to jump and solve it and come to a resolution. And we have our minds are fully developed.
Right. We're
we
problem
can solve this problem.
solvers.
Yeah. And we'll jump straight away to the solution. However, using it as an opportunity to help them develop their problem-solving skills. They have a lot of gray matter in their brain, and just helping them say, well, what would you do, and coaching them through opportunities. Yeah. Because if we jump in to fight our children's battles all the time, when they get older, what will they do? They don't have those life skills instilled in them. Yep. So again, using mistakes or using things that feel really unpleasant for you as a parent who loves your child as a teachable and practical learning experience for your child.
Great. So we're coming close to the end. Thank you so much, Miss Kenzy, for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you and learn so much and be reminded myself, right? There's so much information for parents, and it can sometimes be overwhelming. And so hopefully these radio episodes are really helpful for parents to focus on each topic week by week. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m., and next week, we're going to be joined by Miss Dallas. She's a therapist at Infinite Mind Care. And we're going to be talking about relationship advice. It is Valentine's Day next week. And some people are having amazing relationships. Some people need some support. But it's about managing relationships, right? It's ongoing maintenance. So we have an expert, Miss Dallas from Infinite Mind Care, that's going to join us. and we'll have Miss Rachel Manderson from Family Resource Center. As always, we're happy to be here and to join you every week. And if you have any questions parenting related, please give us a call on 949-0006 or email us at frc@gov.ky. You can follow us on Facebook and our Instagram, where we have our latest news and information updated pretty regularly, almost on a daily basis. And so that's us. Thank you for joining us, listeners, and we'll be here next week to talk about relationship advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.